All right, Science Flipping podcast listeners, as always, this episode is brought to you by Rocketly.ai. If you're looking for a seller lead generating system that has automation, an AI bot, and has sellers coming to you, then Rocketly.ai is your choice. Make sure you head over to the website, fill out an application, and schedule a demo now to see the power of Rocketly.ai.
Yo, Science Flipping family, we're back with another episode of the Science Flipping podcast. I have a good friend of mine, someone who has made a massive dent in the universe in real estate investing and just real estate as a whole already at such a young age. Matt Porcaro is here. What's up, bro?
What's going on, man? Thanks
Dude,
for having
I'm excited about this one. This is going to be something that is so niche relative to what a lot of the guests we talk about real estate investing. You've not just discovered something, but you've discovered how to make it, national, public. Mm-hmm. You've discovered how to share something that such few amount of people have any amount of knowledge of, including yours truly, which is the 203K loan.
Yes. Yep. Real estate's best kept secret, as I always call it.
Well, damn it. Let's blow this thing up and let's make sure you are the man. You have the 203K way, mm-hmm. which is essentially a program where people can get to you and ask you questions and understand how to utilize this loan, right?
So the whole platform, I built everything on Instagram, but the 203kway.com, is more information on there about how I do things, how I help people. I have a whole community that I built really to help people with this because I had no information when I got into this about this loan product and really how to use it specifically as a real estate investor, specifically to like get into the game. Yep. But yeah, the 203kway.com.
Or even your Instagram. What's your Instagram?
At the 203Kway.
There you go.
YouTube, Matt Porcaro, but the 203Kway as well. So I dedicated, when I first started this, I said, I want to make sure that I have all the information out there about this that I never had. So.
Yeah. So you're not only the president, you're also a client.
Yeah.
So absolutely. You yourself have used the 203K loan.
Of course. Yeah. Really the long and short of it was that I was trying to get into real estate investing for a very long time in New York, really high cost of living, really expensive market. And I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I call taking the red pill because, I grew up in an environment, working class. My parents told me to go to college, get a degree and go work 9 to 5. They had their own business. So like that actually like a consistent paycheck every month was what they wanted, right? Yep. The grass is always greener type of thing. So I did that and I did it and jumped into it and then realized immediately that this is not what I like or enjoy. And then also realized that that's also not how people get rich.
Yep.
So when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I read about real estate and I thought real estate sounds amazing. But in New York, I was like, I don't think I could buy my own house, let alone multiple houses. Yeah. So the 203K and finding out about this was a culmination of me kind of researching and finding my way to break into the game for such a long time. And I really almost found it out by accident, but it's ultimately what leveraged me into the game with very little out of pocket, but created, 6 figures of equity and net worth on my first deal.
Let's go. Well, so let's get to the strong point of the 203K loan. What exactly is it? Like why? What exactly is it and who really is the best use case for it?
Yeah. So the FHA 203K loan is an FHA loan. So if anyone's familiar with the FHA loan, it's a government-backed loan product that allows people that are just starting out to buy a house with very little out of pocket, right? 3.5%. The 203K version is a version that allows you to wrap renovation costs into the mortgage. So it was, meant to kind of get the zombie homes off the street and, give people the ability to not only buy a house, but renovate it and fix it up and make it the way they want. One of the cool things about it is that it also allows you to buy up to a 4-unit property. So you can buy a multifamily property, and this is really big with the house hacking community, right?
Yeah.
So obviously housing costs are the number one cost for anybody, right? Like your rent or your mortgage payment is usually the biggest cost. Yep. So house hacking has become very popular where you rent out portions of your house to cover your mortgage, or if you really get a good deal, pay for more and plus cash flow while you're living in the property.
Yeah.
So the 203K really just pours gasoline on the house hacking method, because not only are you able to buy a multifamily property, but you're also able to fix it up, build some equity into the deal, which is what I did, and take that equity to go repeat the process, take that money back out and go buy more multifamily real estate.
So it is like house hacking on steroids. I mean,
it's like the Burr method and house hacking
in your own home.
In your own home with only 3.5% down.
So I love the Burr method, right?
Yeah,
because as an investor, I'm buying a true rental that I'm not going to live in, right? Alabama and throughout Florida and whatever.
Sure.
So I love the model, and the reason why I love the model is because essentially, at the end of the day, first you have the option to have no money left in it, right? You do it, you do good enough rehab, you refi all the money out that you already have in it. The like cherry on top in the good old days, which is only about a year and a half ago, is you could actually even get cash out refi. You could actually get cash in your pocket.
Yeah.
When the loans were a little bit nicer to us. Now, that all may come back here, in the next year or two, but the Burr model for a real estate investor is like, to me at least, it is the perfect model because you don't leave in, and if you do it right, you don't leave any money left in. Now, even if you have to leave a couple dollars, your ROI on that model, meaning I'm always looking for a 20% return.
Yeah.
So that means if I leave 10 grand in, I want to make sure I get that 10 grand back out as whole within 5 years, right? And that's a very similar model to what we're talking about here, where you're basically going all in on your personal home, renovating it, updating it, making it pimped out, and you have very little money left in the deal because they finance it all.
Yeah.
I mean, this is insanity.
So when you talk about like return, right? So to put it into perspective, on my first house, I bought a crack house duplex in New York. Okay. It was
is this a real story?
Yeah, it's a real story. It was literally a crack house. Nobody wanted to touch it with a 10-foot pole, but it was kind of the only thing I could afford, even in the New York market. Sure. I still had to scrape the bottom of the barrel. And I was using the bank's money, and it was very low risk for me. I only had to put $9,500 down on this 2-family, right?
And how much was the purchase price?
So the purchase was $270, and I put $80 into it to renovate it. So I was all in for $350, but only $9,500 out of pocket for that.
95. You had 10 grand. Let's call it 10 grand.
Yep.
Into this property, and you renovated it. It was a full crack house. I mean, this is like the end all be all for real estate. If people are watching this at justincolby.tv or listening to it on Apple or Spotify, like, everyone should be looking into this. Like, if you are sitting here, I have friends that literally last night text me, like, I really want to buy a new home.
Yeah.
But the homes I want that are already pimped out look beautiful. They're the ones I can't get there with the loan rates right now.
Exactly.
So what would you tell them? Go find find the neighborhood, not the nicest one.
Bingo.
And go renovate it yourself. Yes, it takes time. Listen, we can paint the perfect picture, but it takes time, right?
Yeah,
like, this isn't, but you're going to be into it for a fraction. I mean, legitimately a fraction of what you would be in if you bought the already done model.
You're using other people's money, which is real estate investing 101, right? And in addition to, like you said, buy the ugliest house on the nicest block. And most of the thing, like when you're a real estate investor, you're just starting out, right? You're watching the TV shows and HGTV, and you're like, you want to flip a house, whatever. And you look at a house and you're like, oh, all right, well, I have to purchase it. I have to put 25% down, and then I have to finance the renovation portion of it. And they're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that was what I was struggling with. I was like, how the hell does anybody do this? I was 20 something years old.
Yeah.
Like, I had, again, 10, 15 grand, that was it. And that took me a long time to save up, right? Yeah. That was like the most money I had ever had in my bank account. So, when you look at ROI and using the bank's money, remember, this is a government-backed loan product, and this is a way to launch you into the game. Now, we could talk more about like how to repeat it and kind of stuff like that. But ultimately what it did for me was it just leveraged me in really quickly, because off of that $9,500, again, we'll call it 10 grand, the 10 grand, in the first year, I built $150,000 in equity into the property. And then I rented out both units after I moved out a year later. And it still, to this day, cash flows me like $2,000 a month, $2,500 a month. So when you look at like, when you say like, you look at for example, if you're looking for a deal, right? You're like, I want to make a 12% cash on cash return, right? That's a respectable return, right? Totally. On a property, right? My cash on cash return with that 203K property was like 600%.
I was just going to say,
something.
It's like, I don't want to say infinite, but it's like, God, at that point you're like,
it's like not even in the same.
No, you can't.
It's not even the same universe.
It's funny. I use the analogy like, in our world of real estate, a lot of people talk about like a 3x return on investment, right? Like if you're going to go market, you want to get a 3x return on your investment, things of that nature, right? This would be like, you can't even compare the two. When you take our normal world and you say, hey, great, you want a 3x return? I'm getting a 600x return. Yeah. Like you say, why aren't more people doing this? Now the caveat is more traditionally for a home you're going to live in, right? This is the BRRRR model, but owner-occupied BRRRR model, right? House hacking.
So there's a trade-off with everything, of course, obviously, right? The reason they're giving you the very low down payment, the reason they're giving you the lowest possible interest rate that you can get at whatever it is at the moment that you get it, is because owner occupancy to a bank is the most stable, stable asset class, right? So, but you're able to do this to leverage yourself into the game. And it's not a first-time home buyer loan. Like if you're really, like you're saying, like with your friends, if they're willing to go move into another property, it just is owner occupancy. It's not exactly first-time home buyer. Now, obviously, it works well for that. It's, it's also for the person that already has like a consistent income, right? 9 to 5 person, someone that's already working that maybe wants to escape it, kind of like I did. This is your way into it with very little out of pocket and then reap the benefits very quickly. Because what I did was once I had that equity, not to mention the equity, but also the experience of like doing it, the track record, I was able to show my deal to private money lenders and to agents and be like, wow, this guy's a player.
And the bankability. I mean, so I call it bankability, but
that's big. I talk about that a lot. And I don't think people realize what that means. Like when you increase your net worth 200 grand, like, people are struggling like, oh, I can't find good financing for these. When you go to the bank and the bank runs your numbers and they see what you have on your asset, on your asset schedule, and they see that you have like hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity, they know that you're good for it.
Fact.
That if they really had to like come down on you, you got some assets. So they're more willing to be more flexible with you. So one of the biggest things that I was so surprised about when I got that first deal was how much one deal changes your opportunity, changes how people talk to you. Like I was, I'm an electrical engineer by trade. Like you go to a party, you talk to people like, oh, what do you do for work? Oh, I'm an accountant. Oh, I'm an electrical engineer. And, you go to a party and then you talk to people and you're like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I invest in real estate. You immediately become the most interesting person in the room. Now, someone watching this might not want that, but it's just a crazy thing to think about, that like the opportunity that comes your way. And it only took one. Like I remember thinking like, oh, I only did one. Like I'm nobody.
Sure.
But that one, the distance between someone that's never done it to someone that has is massive. So when you do that, you've accomplished yourself, you've proven yourself that you can do it. And then you just ride that wave and that momentum. And that was the beauty of this.
One got you into a room that I'm sitting in, gets you into another room I'm sitting in, and then all the people that I'm with, because you're one.
Yeah.
People want to go, I use the analogy swallow an elephant, right? Like they want to go get the whole thing right now, all of it at once. Take one bite at a time. Just like every human puts on pants one leg at a time.
Bingo.
But a lot of the listeners, a lot of you watching this on YouTube, you want the whole thing right now. Stop the nonsense. Like Matt is talking about, he did the one. It got him into rooms he never would have been able to get into without the one, right?
Yeah. If aliens abducted you, would they be impressed or disappointed by the leads in your CRM? Over 850 real estate investors are currently tapping into the goldmine of motivated seller leads from property leads. Guess what? They're not just twiddling their thumbs. They're closing deals left, right, and center. And their conversion rates are anywhere from 1 in 8 to 1 in 15 leads. Property leads are the masters of delivering top-tier inbound leads, think SEO and PPC, the kind that make your competition green with envy. And did I mention, they refund any spammy leads. Talk about a risk-free investment. The best part? You don't have to lift a finger. Every lead is immediately zapped straight into your CRM, phone, or email, and there are no missed opportunities. Why settle for lukewarm leads when you could be igniting your real estate success with property leads? Time to add some serious fuel to your fire. Head over to propertyleads.com/flip, FLIP, to unlock exclusive access to motivated seller leads in your markets. Just 5 minutes to set up your account. There's no excuse to delay. That's propertyleads.com/flip. FLIP.
So because I'm really curious.
Yeah, of course.
Let's take me. I live in Miami. We're in Miami. You just flew your happy ass from New York down to Miami to rock this podcast. I'm super excited. We're going to go grab some food here shortly if you have time.
Yeah, of course.
I have the flexibility to live anywhere I want. I love my life. You know my family. You've met my wife and daughter, the whole thing. And I hope to meet your family here soon. But
it will happen.
I'm very aware, as you just had your second child recently, and I'm about to have my second. Changes the game a little bit.
It does.
I get
big
it.
time.
I do get that. If I wanted to move somewhere, let's just take Scottsdale, Arizona. What if I wanted to move back to Scottsdale? I have a permanent residence here. I own it. I have a loan on it.
Yep.
I have $1 million of equity on it, right? Does that, and the home I'm going to want is in the millions, right? Is there a price point that this loan won't work for? If I already have a home, am I not allowed to use this? And let's just use me as the example, because now I'm like, maybe this is a move.
Yeah. So,
and I'm not working the system. Like I would move. I would make this next thing a permanent home, right?
Yeah, the guidelines are very black and white. I mean, at the end of the day, to answer a bunch of the questions, right? First off, it is based off of national and local loan limits for Fannie Mae, FHA, right? So those you can Google, you look up FHA loan limits or Fannie Mae loan limits in Scottsdale or in Arizona, wherever you're looking to move, and you'll see that they're there. Now, you'll be surprised. Often people are very surprised that, it's a lot higher than you think. For example, in where I'm at in New York, a single family home, the FHA loan limit I think is like 1.4 million or something right now. Yeah. So there is a baseline. Obviously, you're looking at some sweet pads.
Yeah.
But remember, that's the loan limit. Now, what's not to say that you being a great deal finder yourself, you find a deal that the ARV is going to be 2.4, but you picked it up for 1.4 or 1 or 100. Or $1 million, and you're putting $400,000 into it, it's going to be worth two and change. It goes. The loan limit they give you is based.
It's not the value of the home; it's the loan limit.
Correct.
That's the highest loan you can get.
Yeah,
so it doesn't mean I have to buy a home that is only worth 1.4.
Right. And so long as you qualify for it is the big thing too. If you're going into the new residence, they're going to ask, and you plan to keep your Miami residence, they're just going to say, okay, what are you doing with the Miami residence? Are you renting it out? What are you like? If you're covering, or if you could afford both, that's doable too. It is a doc loan, right? So they are looking at your income and your debts and what that DTI ratio is. They look at a 50% debt to income ratio. That's really what they judge you off of. So that's your maximum, right? So whatever your income is versus your debts, you want to be your gross income. Needs to be 50%. So.
Do they, would I have to have my personal residence in Miami already rented out before I made the move?
So there's a couple different loan products that exist, and they have different requirements. FHA is the stricter one.
Sure.
Fannie Mae has a product called the Homestyle. I'm actually doing it on my own home right now. Okay. So I practice what I preach, man. We use the Homestyle loan. We're renovating our own house. That's another example. We picked it up for $615. We're putting about $300 into it, but it's going to be worth like $1.3 when we're done. So we're building almost $500,000 in equity.
So did they finance your purchase and rehab on that as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
So again, getting the worst. So my neighborhood, I literally was just messing around the other day. So I go and buy the 800,000, but let's just say I even have to add square footage. Does it allow for that?
Everything. All you could. There's really no limit.
Addition cost, as long as, let's just use the example, it's 1.4, just like in New York.
Sure.
Just to keep the example.
Yep.
As long as I'm all in for the loan at 1.4 or less, it doesn't matter. Additions, add 1,000 square feet, add a pool, whatever.
We added 800 square feet to my house.
So. And I can add a pool if it didn't have a pool.
So great question. FHA, the 203K FHA is a little more strict. Well, they're not really that strict. Really just has to be integral to the house itself. So it needs to be, you could renovate, you could get nice finishes, you could get
So you could have a pool, and I could redo a pool.
You could redo a pool.
Add the pool.
Now the home style loan, which is Fannie Mae's product, which is the conventional product, is a lot more flexible. You can build a pool house, basketball court, whatever. It kind of just gives you carte blanche. Now they will, so obviously there's the loan limit, but what they really look at for your average buyer is they look at what the ARV of the property is going to be. and they give you, up to 100% of that on the home style. On the FHA 203K, this is pretty wild. They'll finance 110% of the ARV. So they'll actually let you over leverage it by 10%. Obviously not something I am a big fan of or as a real estate investor. Like I don't
feel
think
like
you should
we've seen
over
that
leverage.
story before with 2006, 7.
Yeah, you do. But I think the reason that FHA probably does it is because, again, they know that you're renovating it for your own home, and they probably, again, it's the owner occupancy. So they're assuming you're going to be there for a little. Else, right? Yeah, they assume you're going to be there for a little while. Yeah. So like if you're willing to over leverage it, if you're there in 10 years, the appreciation is going to make up for it, and you'll be fine.
Interesting. This is an interesting thing, and I would tell you most investors should be looking like it. So, ironically, as someone who's a full-time real estate investor, I'm not a big advocate of buying your own home.
Yeah, a lot of people aren't. Yeah.
And this kind of changes that for me because I think like an investor. So I moved to Miami from Scottsdale, and we did buy a home because my wife wanted to own the home here.
Yeah.
Fair. But I still look at it as an investment tool because what I just told you, I probably have roughly $1 million. That equity is only useful to me if I go use it, but I have roughly $1 million worth of equity in this home.
But bankability too, right?
It gives me bankability. So in the sense of, hey, we might move somewhere. I want to buy a rental. I want to buy this flip. I can go get that money out of my home and use it as a tool as a real estate investor. But what we're talking about, actually kind of spins my concept in my head saying, well, maybe everyone should actually buy a home because they have an opportunity to be a real estate investor while doing it. And it doesn't have to be permanent. This loan, you don't go to jail if you leave the home in 2 years like you did.
Yeah.
It allows you to become an actual real estate investor, even buying your own home. And then I would make an argument everyone should, because if you're adding the value, just like a flipper or a burr,
yep.
I want to add so much value. I have equity.
Bingo.
And then when you have equity, you have the bankability, and then you can go rinse and repeat this model essentially forever, depending upon your lifestyle, right?
I say that this is like the new American dream, right? We can't trip and fall into a house anymore like society could 60 years ago, right?
Or in 2005.
Yeah, right. You have a pulse and a hand to sign. You got a loan
approved. That was me, by the way. I literally I got a 6%, 100% finance deal, top of the market, brand new build. Right. They didn't care. I just submitted my Social Security, and they're like, "Yeah, you're fully approved, 6% interest." I was like, "This is wild." And
to that point, right? Like you talk about the assets versus liabilities, and there's that common thing that Robert Kiyosaki said is your own home is a liability. It's not an asset. Yeah. It's other homes that become assets. Your rental properties are assets, but your own home is a liability because typically for most people, their own home, as they go in and they spend a ton of money to, maintain it and landscape it and repair it. And over the course of 30 years, it's not a true investment. You're not making money on it. Now, appreciation will go up. But again, I think his point is when you add up all the expenses and you add up the interest that you pay over it on 30 years, you ever look at it, obviously a truth in lending statement is, right? So when you take out a 30-year mortgage on a $500,000 property, over the course of 30 years, you're actually paying over double of that $500,000. So in what universe is that a good investment?
Right.
You paid $1 million to make $500,000.
Right.
Right. Now, of course, it'll appreciate a little bit, but okay, maybe you break even. With this method, with building, again, it's value add investing, right? It's the Burr strategy. It's a way to force yourself into some equity and basically just press the fast forward button on the process. And that gives you that leverage and that creates it into a true investment. Now, to make things even better, again, you can buy a multifamily, or even now, just as of really last year, they're letting you forecast the future rental income, or letting you use the rental income of accessory units. Down here in Miami, they have casitas,
Sure.
little mother-in-law suites, right?
Yeah.
Typically, they wouldn't use that rental income to qualify you. So you're able to take that rental income and really offset your mortgage, or if not cover it all.
Wow.
In these higher cost of living areas. And one cool thing to know is that for every $1,500 in rent that you'd be getting from either there's ADUs, accessory dwelling units, which are becoming huge right now because there's such a lack of housing in the U.S. right now. ADUs are sweeping across the nation. So if you're saying to yourself, oh, I can't buy a multifamily, I live in an area that's only single family homes. Well, you could just plop down a casino. I mean, you could even buy one of those like Amazon houses, those pre-built prefab houses, and drop it in your backyard. The 203K will finance that.
You're just blowing my, I mean, that whole Amazon housing thing.
It's crazy.
Amazon's just going to own the world at some point.
Yeah, they will.
I mean, this is getting insane.
Yeah. So like you could buy a prefab house. Obviously, you have to like, finish it and do some like stuff inside, but like it's a pre-built structure that you drop in your backyard. As long as your zoning allows it, you can get the rental income from that, qualify yourself for more. Again, now that's a true investment. You're making money off your own home, and that's an investment. And that's where you're basically beating the system. When I say like the American dream's new, like this is the new American dream, right? When my family came over from, like Italy and, from Ireland, right? And they moved to New York City, they all house hacked.
Yeah.
It was called like, this is how we're going to afford to live in New York City. They had multifamily properties. They lived in these tenements. They all pitched in. One of them in the family was the lucky one that had the note, and they all combined their rent together. That was how immigrants came over to the United States. That's how they were able to afford it. And that's how a lot of people do it. You still see it to this day. Immigrant families come in and they share housing. House hacking is like the most American thing you could do, in my opinion.
If you're a young kid, I mean, I don't know, and I know you coach a lot of people for this, but I would even say if you're a young kid, and what I mean young, 20 to 30, okay? If you're in your 20s, going to college, just out of college, this is the move. Go buy a home and house hack using this loan. Mm-hmm. This would be everything. Now, you might need, can you do like co-signatures, co-signers on it? Because... If you're 21, you may not have the DTI kind of ratio and all that other stuff, but then you get all your friends to pay you rent. Mm-hmm. You effectively are living for free. You're actually paying down your home mortgage, which we know the first 5 to 7 years is heavily interest rate bill anyways. Yeah. They're all paying that down. You now have your very first investment as a 21-year-old, 25-year-old, 30-year-old that essentially you're going to have the bankability from having all this equity that all your friends just paid you down.
Right.
You have a party house that you're going to love anyways. You're going to be with your friends all the time anyways. Yeah. You now actually have your very first investment that could make you a millionaire before you're 30, depending upon where you buy it.
100%.
This is like I keep saying no brainer to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm even sitting here just thinking, like, instead of giving my kid a fund or a college fund or whatever, you go buy her a house to do this with and actually help her understand the value of money, help her understand business, and for sure get her into the real estate game.
It's free money that everyone could take advantage of, right? And it's I'm not the biggest fan of the government by any means,
sure,
but I think it's one program that they really did get pretty right. Yeah. And just with like anything else, like you said, it takes effort. Now, what's the quote? Like, to the victor gets the spoils, or whatever it is. Like, listen, you're not going to get something for nothing, right?
Do you have to live in the home?
Yeah.
Like while it's being renovated?
No. So you don't have to actually like physically occupy it. So what happened in my case, right? I bought the property. It was an 8-month renovation. So the requirement is you have to intend to be there as your primary residence for a year after the closing date.
Okay.
So what happened was the renovation took me 8 months. Now, in my position, I was lucky enough I was able to live with my family at the time, so I didn't have to pay for a mortgage and rent at the same time. However, they have it built into the loan because they know
living with your family.
Yeah, but one of the cool things and one of the cool features is like they understand that you might be paying housing for another place while this is being renovated. So they give you the option to wrap up to, now they just changed it to up to 9 months of the mortgage into 9 of your mortgage payments into the loan. So now you could buy the property, not pay out of pocket for it while it's being renovated. Then when you're done, you can go in and then start making the payments. So
I feel like this is going to make me want to move every 2 years.
Listen, man.
And I'll just build a portfolio.
Yeah.
For the rest of my life, and I'll just need to sell my wife on this idea. Yeah, but honey, we're going to have, $42 million homes across the country, and we're out.
And the coolest thing about it is, again, just very recent. So here's the thing, right? Obviously, we know what's going on with the market, right? Everything's changing. Everything's getting more and more expensive. It's getting harder and harder for millennials to buy a house, let alone renovate it. We saw it was all in the news. Like there was a big downturn in the amount of mortgages being endorsed, right? It was like an all-time low or the lowest in 18 years, whatever it was, right? And people were just not buying homes.
Yeah.
They thought that jacking the interest rates, they thought would, help it, but it didn't. Actually, people were just like, well, we can't afford anything. And sellers are like, we can't go anywhere.
Right.
So it did the opposite. Like, value stayed up. So FHA and Fannie Mae, even though they're government-backed entities, they're still entities and they still need to make money. And what happened was they had to go back to the drawing board and be like, well, how else are we going to continue to make these programs more feasible, more attractive? Because we got to do something because we're not bringing in any business. We have no mortgages being endorsed. So they made a lot of changes recently. Number one being that Fannie Mae, typically, FHA was the only product that you could buy up to a 4-unit property with only 3.5% down or a low down payment if you own or occupy it, right? With Fannie Mae, you could buy a quadplex, but you would have to put 25% down, even if you lived there. Fannie Mae changed it where now you can buy up to a 4-unit property for only 5% down. And one of the big issues people were finding with FHA, we were just talking about it with one of the guys over here about the self-sufficiency test, right? FHA has this thing where like, if the property doesn't pay, it makes sense. I mean, it's common sense, but FHA had this test where if the other 3 units, that if you're living in a quadplex, if the other 3 units couldn't cover at least 75% of the mortgage, they wouldn't give you the loan. And it knocked down a lot of people's opportunities to buy quadplexes. It also exists with triplexes, same kind of deal. Fannie Mae stepped into the mix. They don't have that same requirement. So as long as your income can do it and you're able to factor in that future rental income, you can do this now. And then Fannie Mae, unlike FHA, Fannie Mae allows you to repeat the process. They allow you to have up to 11 of these in your name at any given time, where FHA only allowed 1.
What?
So
I can have 11 of these?
Yes, including your
What
primary.
What is the length of like having to move, or like how quickly can I buy it, live in it?
A year.
So every year I could move my happy ass
As
for
long
the next 11
as
years.
you follow the guidelines on what you're doing, you have a something that's going to cover the debt on the previous property, and you qualify on income wise, and you're moving in earnest into the next property. Absolutely.
It's insanity to me.
Yeah, and 5% down every time. Like you don't have to put.
I know people right now are probably feeling the same way I'm feeling. Mm-hmm. The best place for them to inquire more is just go hit you up on Instagram.
Instagram's the best place. Yeah.
Now, is there any place that they can like apply, or is there something that they can? Because I know I'm sitting here and I get the privilege of essentially asking the questions I want to know.
Yeah.
But I'm sure these watchers and the listeners are like, Matt, how do I know more? How do I learn more? So Instagram.
Yep.
203K way?
The 203K way on Instagram. I've been posting consistently every day for 6 years on there. And again, when I built this, all I wanted to do was, I got done with that first deal, and I just remember sitting in that property, being done with the renovation, smelling the paint on the walls, smelling the new floors, like looking around and just being like, how the hell do not more people know about this?
Right.
Why did this take me so long to even know it existed? And mind you, like it wasn't a walk in the park for me, because I didn't have someone like me that knew about it to walk me through it. I kind of had to just figure it out on my own, which I'm glad I did.
Right.
Because it taught me so much about it.
Totally.
So when I created my whole platform, the 203K way, I just wanted to let everybody know about it. So my Instagram, my YouTube, I have all the information you could ever want or know, step by step. Obviously people are like, okay, listen, I get it, Matt. I understand it. I want to do it, but I just want to do it and get it right the first time. Make sure I slam dunk it. So I do work with people, right, one-on-one, and I coach people through it, and guarantee that we walk you through the process to get you 6 figures of equity, get you cash flowing day one, right, using this strategy. So you could go to the 203kway.com/apply to apply to work with me. It's not for everybody. You just have to make sure that you're the right fit for us to work together. But that's an option as well.
I just want to not be totally selfish with the questions I want to ask.
Keep doing it, man.
I'm just like,
I always say, like, the questions that you have are probably the questions that everyone else has on this. Not many people know about it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the benefit I have going on podcasts and stuff like this is like, people are like, oh, what do you want to talk about? I'm like, you're interested in it, just ask.
Yeah.
Because there's so much to know and there's so much I could tell, but the questions that are obvious to you are probably what everyone else is thinking.
Well, I think the obvious thing for any person looking to be a true real estate investor would be, I would encourage everyone to, you can do it on a single family home, but I would probably go do a duplex, triplex, or quadplex.
100%.
I would really encourage that. I'm kind of asking questions like, hey, if I were ever to move, would this probably be a better strategy for me? And now, has everything that we're seeing with loans, right? Interest rates going up, whatever, which is not even that bad. It's not. People are making it way more than it needs to be.
My 203K, the first one I did, I got like 6.5%.
What do rates look like now for a 203K?
It's the same as FHA. So
it's an FHA
yeah,
loan.
it's an FHA loan. Now there's a lot of lenders out there that don't do this, or they'll claim to do it, or they'll say don't do it.
Is because you can help navigate them where to go.
Right.
So here's what I'll tell everyone listening to this, everyone watching this on YouTube. Make sure to reach out to Matt. Like if I were to use this, I would be calling him saying, hey, where do I go? What do I do? What lenders do I do? What app do I need to fill out? Like the questions I'm having is like, how far down the path do I need to go before I start the process, right? Yeah. Do I need to just go get the approval first?
Yep.
Or do I need to go find the house first and then go make sure I get approved? Do I want to have an offer in on a house?
Yeah.
Where do people start?
The first thing to do is work with a lender that knows how to do these. Now, luckily, over the years, I've been able to build relationships with lenders that do this. They do it nationally. I call them my preferred lender partners. I'm not a loan officer. I'm not a real estate agent. I'm just a big fan and proponent of this process.
Yeah.
You're
a spokesperson.
I am. I really am.
Yeah.
I'm like the unofficial 203K influencer.
I was just going to say, you guys better get this guy a sponsorship or something, because this guy's pushing weight over
I don't need
here.
to be on any government payrolls.
Right.
But I've been able to build that, and for every lender out there that will tell you, oh, it's too much of a pain, or it's just, I always make the analogy, if you have a Porsche, right, and you have to get the oil changed or something, your tires rotated, you don't bring it to a Honda dealership.
Right.
Now, the Honda mechanic could probably do it, but like, why would you? He's going to fumble over it. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to, have really just give you a problem with your asset, right? So, the 203kway.com/lender, you go there, fill out a quick form, say what market you're in, what you're, couple other questions. We'll put you in contact with a lender that's in your market that specializes in these loans and does them day in, day out. One of the cool things too is like you could wrap in like damn near all your closing costs. Like all my students, all the people I work with, like when I say 3.5% down, I get 3.5% down. So anyone that's quick with math, right? When I said $9,500 on a $350,000 loan, that was my first deal.
Yeah. Anyone
that does math and is like, not one of me, but people that are quick with math, they'll be like, well, that's actually like 2.5% or 2.7%. What's that? I got a full 6% seller's concession back at closing. So you could get 6% back at closing with FHA of the purchase price. My 6% seller's concession overpaid my closing costs. So I got a check back at closing. I was actually supposed to lay out like another couple grand. Instead, that money came back to me.
Wow.
So my net out was $9,500, because you're able, again, when you find a good deal, you do all this stuff. You could wrap in all your closing costs.
So the principles are still the same though. Find a good deal. Yeah. Find the worst home in the best neighborhood. Like it comes down to the same principles I would teach as a real estate investor.
100%.
Find the right deal. Now the caveat, you're going to live in this one, but find the best deal for you at the best price. And then the same thing, figure out where the end value is going to be. Make sure you are well under that. I would make the argument you want to be at 50% of the end value.
Yeah.
So if you buy $1 million home, you better hope that it's $2 million by the end of it. That's the right type of deal.
Yep.
They're going to finance up to $1.4 million in the New York area.
Yep.
Who knows around the country.
Yep.
Right. Like you still have to use investing principles.
100%.
That's the key. That's why I love this so much, is if you're listening or watching this, you already have enough understanding of investing principles. You're interested in investing, right? You're just going to help them take that. Everyone reach out to Matt, 203K way, but like, because they need to learn more. They need to have someone like you to coach them through this process. Like I've done this 16 years. I'm still going to call you and say, hey dude, I think I'm going to do this thing.
Yeah.
Help me make sure I'm buying the right type of home. I'm getting the credits I need, that I'm getting the maximum.
The tenets and the foundations of real estate investing are the same, but it's the nuance of the loan itself and how it operates is where I come in and specialize in, because I know how to pull every lever in the process, right? I've helped hundreds of people do this, and like I know where to push the button, where to pull to get the most, to keep as much money in your pocket as possible, where to leverage and pull the most out. The other cool thing, like we're talking about finding a good deal, and that's obviously the most important part of any real estate investing endeavor, right? The coolest thing about this is because you're putting so little out of pocket, because you're paying such a lower interest rate than a typical investor using like a DSCR loan or something like that, or an end buyer, the deals pencil out easier.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I call it the Goldilocks zone. You're basically playing in this part of the market where like you can afford more than like a flipper or a wholesaler, but you're not playing with the retail buyers because retail buyers are looking for move-in ready stuff that's going to pass inspection.
Right.
You can go on the MLS and everything that's in as-is condition and stuff they say like cash only, like you can purchase all of that.
Yeah.
The only thing with the condition is it needs to be some existing structure of some kind. It doesn't have to be, there's no such thing as too messed up of a property. There's also no such thing as like too nice of a property.
Yeah.
You could you could get a house that's move-in ready, totally financeable, but if you want to renovate the kitchens and bathrooms, and as long as it, the loan to value works out, you could do that too.
It has all the principles. And like, I was just thinking, like, the only caveat is if you wanted the aesthetic, that doesn't count within the loan. Meaning, when I bought my home here in Miami, so we took out all the lawn, we put in turf, we put in pavers.
Yeah.
That's aesthetic. Yeah. They're not going to wrap that in the loan.
They will. On a home style, they will, for sure. 100%. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's interesting because I'm just thinking about like homes that I would like. Maybe I want to remodel the inside. That's the obvious.
Yeah.
But what about the backyards and like making them look better because they're just raw or they didn't do anything to it?
Yeah. I mean, you could do all that. And then Fannie Mae also, mind you, has two other products that you don't have to occupy the property. Fannie Mae home style loan, you can get a 10% down second home loan. So as long as you live there some portion of the year, it follows like the second home standards, right? You have to live, I don't know what the exact number is.
Yeah.
You could buy it and renovate it with only 10% down. And then they have an investment product where you can go and buy another property, only put 15% down, but they give you the purchase price plus the renovation. Airbnbs.
Now, that's usually like a hard money lender in my space. You're talking about as a flipper, as a burr guy. Yeah. I buy it, I remodel it. My lender makes me put 10% down.
Yeah.
They will refi me out of the remodel. Mm-hmm. Now, in my space, I actually have to pay the first draw. They reimburse me.
Yeah.
Is it
you're
the
paying
same
points up front, stuff like that?
Is it the same thing in these type of loans where you're paying the contractor the first 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 grand, then the lender reimburse, or is it?
No, you don't have to pay out of pocket for your contractor.
Interesting.
The check goes directly to the contractor.
Listen, we only have so much damn time, but I can pepper you for hours.
Yeah.
So, because again, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, I would make the argument, if you're in your 20s at all, if even 30s or more, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But this is your way in to my world, to the real estate investing world, without necessarily making it a business per se, but you're getting your foot in the door. The amount you would learn by just doing this and buying your own home, I mean, you've really changed how I view buying a home, because it becomes an investment tool, because you get the bankability, you get the equity, you're not coming out a lot cash. The reason why I like the burr is if you do it right, your money's all out. You don't need to have any money into that thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, listen, 3.5% of your own money in your own personal home that you've created 30% more value, 40% more value. Like, that's a no-brainer on your return on investment.
What's like the average appreciation rate right now in the U.S.? Do you know what it is? I think it's like somewhere around 5 or 6%.
5% a year is like an average.
So think about this: if you renovate your house, you're the new top of market.
Yeah.
No matter where you are in the country, you renovate it, you are the new comp. You are in the new standard. Okay, so you're already at the top of the market. So that alone, when you get your appraisal, you're gonna get a bump because your new finishes, you're brand new. So right off the cuff, let's just say on the low end, you're making 10% of equity. If you even don't even plan to be a real estate investor, you're just setting the comp, right? Yeah. Now you also appreciate it 5% a year. Let's call it 5%, 5-6%, right? You doubled your down payment. By the time you're done with your renovation, like I have a guy that's doing a big renovation right now. It took him a long time, a year and a half. It's $1 million+ property, big renovation. His equity has gone up like $100,000 in the time it's taken him to renovate the property. Yeah. He's not even in it yet. And he's already made a respectable year's salary in equity just by owning it off of, I mean, this was $1 million property. He only put 35 grand down.
Yep.
3.5%. So
that is so wild.
Yeah. Triplex in New York. And it's, again, so like you can't, I just say like, this is not an FTC thing to say, but like literally like every person I've worked with like never loses. You're putting so little down. If you follow my strategy and you work with the right people, obviously that like know what they're doing.
Yeah.
You can't lose on it. It's 3.5%. It appreciates.
When you live there, you have an asset. It's a real estate.
Right. There's the benefit of having a place
this isn't some quick flip where you're going to go make.
Of
but
course.
You're in the game of real estate investing. Guys, make sure you go follow Matt Porcaro. He is my good friend. I'm going to be peppering him with more questions at lunch. But 203K Way on Instagram, YouTube.
Yep.
Follow them, but apply, like get engaged with them. Like, don't do this alone. That's the one thing I would say, because I'm not, if I decide to do this, I'm not going to do it alone.
Yeah.
I'm going to be peppering you with questions. So.
Yeah. It's all about building that foundation from the get-go. As long as you do that, it's really hard to fail on this.
This is phenomenal.
So, yeah, man.
This is phenomenal. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
All right, y'all. I'll see you guys on the next episode of The Science of Flipping.
Peace out.